What if China actually invades Taiwan by 2027? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. It's September 2027 at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Xi Jinping, China's president, steps onto the podium. Distinguished heads of state and government. In October 1971, this very hall bore witness to a historic decision, one that affirmed the legitimacy of the People's Republic of China as the sole representative of the Chinese nation. This decision put an end to the false claims of a small island, home to just a fraction of our people, to speak for our great country. For decades, we have shown patience and goodwill, fostering economic and cultural ties, extending support, and promoting peaceful development. Yet, in return, we have received only provocation, defiance, and betrayal. Rather than recognizing our shared heritage, they have aligned with external forces that seek to weaken China and obstruct its rise. These actions are not merely misguided, they are a direct affront to national unity. Those who seek division will find themselves standing against the tide of history. China's sovereignty is sacred, its traditional integrity inviolable. Reunification is inevitable. Those who betray their nation will face the consequences. Xi Jinping and his advisors leave, and the room falls silent, only to be broken moments later by the furious reactions from the US and Japan. What Xi has declared is not mere rhetoric. It's a line drawn in blood, a warning of a conflict no longer distant, but imminent. The world holds its breath. Some minutes after the speech, Xi Jinping is taking some coffee, surrounded by his advisors. The furious Donald Trump is heard approaching. Xi gives a small nod, and the room clears to make way for him.
Xi, that speech you gave, was it supposed to scare everybody? Because I have heard plenty of talk before.
Mr. Trump, I merely reiterated China's unwavering position. We do not hide our intentions. You know our resolve on Taiwan.
I know you keep pushing it, but I'm telling you, America's got a huge stake there. We're not turning our backs.
China will safeguard its sovereignty. We are not asking permission. We are stating facts. If others interfere, the consequences are clear.
Look, you don't want to bump heads with us. It's not just me saying that. Nobody in Washington is going to let you slide.
Mr. Trump, I believe we have reached an impasse. We have no desire for conflict, but we will never compromise on what we consider ours.
Just remember who you're dealing with. I don't like to be crossed, and neither does the United States. We'll see how this plays out.
Indeed we shall. Excuse me, Mr. Trump. I have other engagements.
Don't walk away from this. We'll talk again, sooner than you think.
I'm sure we will, Mr. President. Until next time. Back in Beijing, Xi has a meeting with his generals. Gentlemen, it's time. Please tell me, how are the preparations going? Mr. Chairman, preparations are ahead of schedule. The transport fleet of 10,000 ships is ready, and we are confident nobody knows its true size. Only those in this room. Drones have been neutralized. Entrances camouflaged. Materials, supplies, and funds have been rerouted so that their real purpose remains hidden. Our first troops, nearly 500,000, are already in Xiamen, Quanzhou, and Putian for official training. Missiles are locked onto Taipei, and our aircraft are ready to launch at any time. We believe our technology and spies can neutralize at least 50% of their anti-aircraft missiles, which is more than we originally expected. 1 million more troops will be ready within a month. That's when we plan to strike. Waiting any longer could jeopardize the mission. It must remain entirely secret. And of course, there is one other thing. Great, thank you. 50%, eh? Still not good enough. Failures like in the 1950s are a luxury we cannot afford. We need to be sure. Mr. Chairman, there are indeed complications. The Americans are helping them. Even taking Kinmen could be a challenge if we aren't lucky. Then we need to create our own luck, General. We will, of course. But there are variables beyond our control. The monsoon season is approaching, and the Taiwan Strait could be impassable. That's why we have the best ships in the world. Isn't that what you told me last time? I'm just saying success isn't guaranteed. It's 90 miles to Taiwan, and the strait has never been easy to navigate. They'll be waiting for us with submarines, guns, and defenses. Asking too much from our soldiers will hurt morale. We need to be careful. We also need to be efficient. Why haven't I heard a word about that from you, General? We'll be efficient, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for appearing defeatist. Kinmen will indeed be an easy target. We'll make sure that it is. From there, we'll have all the time we need to transport troops. The Americans will take weeks to come, and we'll have the island surrounded. There's nothing to worry about. What about their missiles? Can they hit us? Yes, they can. But we are a great nation. We can take it and hit back harder. What about the invasion? How many troops do we have? What's the plan? What should we expect? Taiwan is a tricky case. Their mountains and forests are a formidable defense. The Taiwanese will most probably destroy their ports so we cannot land. They will fire on our landing beaches from all directions. Climbing from there under fire will not be easy. Still, landing will be the easy part. Moving inland and capturing Taipei will be the real challenge. The city is surrounded by mountains. It will be defended to the last man. They have 180,000 active soldiers, 1.5 million reservists, and many irregular forces. Some may side with us, but most will not. This might be the most complex military operation in modern history. We will need 5 million troops to overcome all these obstacles. Are these troops ready? They are. Then let's begin. In the meantime, I will have to make a call. Get me the Taiwanese governor on the phone.
Good morning, Mr. Xingti.
Good morning to you, Mr. Jinping. I was expecting your call.
Then you must also know what I'm about to ask.
I do, but I need you to understand you're pushing us into a very difficult position.
I'll be frank, Mr. Xingti. Our position is already far too difficult. The Han people are surrounded by enemies. Enemies who tremble at the thought of us prospering. I don't care what your ideas are about the economy, or what you like to call human rights. You can keep them. What I want is for China to be united. I want our nation and our people to expand to the ocean and beyond, without a traitorous island standing in the way.
You're going too far.
Why is that going too far? Isn't inviting foreigners to resolve our international disputes too far? This is an issue between us. Why do you want to sabotage the future we can build together?
It's not for me to judge the sincerity of your words, Mr. Jinping. It's for my people, and they see it very differently than you.
I understand. Then allow me to say what I must. The government of the People's Republic of China demands from the province of Taiwan
Government of Taiwan.
to remain faithful to the Chinese constitution and comply with the following terms, as dictated by the will of the Chinese people and the Communist Party of China. First, allow Chinese troops on the island. Second, allow Chinese ships to dock in your ports. Third, call for immediate elections for a new parliament and president under the supervision of Beijing and the People's Republic.
Is that all?
Yes.
Then I wish you good day, Mr. Jinping.
Good days are over for now, Mr. Xingti.
Minutes later, Xi Jinping announces that China will exercise its legal rights over the Chinese province of Taiwan. The world is watching with agony. The first hours are chaos. China's naval blockade takes shape quickly, surrounding Taiwan's shores and cutting off all access to the outside world. No ships can enter or leave. At the same time, waves of bombers unleash hell on Taipei and other major cities. The sky fills with explosions, buildings are torn apart, and civilians have nowhere to hide. The impact is instant and devastating. The first territorial changes happen swiftly. A Chinese amphibious force lands on the Great Kinmen Islands, Taiwan's closest territory to China, just 33 kilometers off the coast of Xiamen. This marks the first step of a much larger invasion, long prepared for by Beijing. But Taiwan doesn't remain an observer. Its 150 F-16s dominate the skies, confident under the projection of advanced anti-aircraft systems, especially the TK-3s. Tens of Chinese bombers and fighters are shot down in the first few hours, but more keep coming, an unrelenting onslaught. Even more alarming, huge fleets are amassing at the ports of Xiamen, Fuzhou, and Quanzhou. Xi Jinping has stayed true to his word. It's not just airstrikes and naval blockades. China is preparing for a full-scale landing. The forces are concentrated, and the landing force is nearly ready. And that's not all. According to the US and Japanese intelligence, an aircraft carrier with a substantial part of the Chinese Navy is nowhere to be found. While the battles continue, Taiwan plays its most crucial card, its allies, with the US at the forefront. President Trump has warned China countless times that any attack on Taiwan would be regarded as an attack on US soil. Now the US orders its entire 7th Fleet, 70 ships, 150 aircraft, and 20,000 personnel to leave Yokosuka, Japan and head for the Taiwan Strait. The stakes could not be higher. In a press conference, the U.S. representative warns China that any attack on U.S. military forces will be considered an official declaration of war. At the same time, Washington calls an emergency session at the United Nations, demanding the condemnation of China's invasion. However, Russia and China veto the resolution, and the BRICS nations either abstain or vote against the condemnation. While all of this unfolds, an unexpected development occurs many miles east of Taiwan. A massive Chinese naval fleet, led by the aircraft carrier Liaoning, suddenly appears off the coast of Hawaii. Traumatic memories of 1941 resurface quickly. At 7 a.m. on September 4th, the bombardment begins, targeting all 14 military bases on the islands. Hundreds of bombers and fighters unleash chaos. Honolulu, the capital, falls within hours. Intelligence agencies had warned of China's growing stealth capabilities, but no one had anticipated they could bypass US and allied radar systems, making it all the way to the middle of the Pacific undetected. The world is stunned. America, once again, appears weak and vulnerable. The attack triggers NATO's immediate declaration of war on China, but Japan hesitates to follow suit. Just hours ago, the 7th Fleet was an asset. Now it has become a liability. Trapped between the main Chinese fleet surrounding Taiwan and the returning fleet from Hawaii, the Americans find themselves in dire need for reinforcements. Is Japan prepared to risk its own security to support America? The haunting memories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki resurface. That afternoon, Donald Trump calls Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba.
Prime Minister Ishiba, you've got to act now. The Chinese are closing in on Taiwan, and the world is watching. The U.S. is stuck in a bind. We need Japan's full support immediately. You've got to declare war. You can't afford to sit back any longer.
Mr. President, I understand the urgency, but Japan's situation is complex. We have to consider our people's sentiment. This is not a decision to rush. I need to consult with my government. China is right opposite us, not somewhere thousands of miles away. And the last thing Japan needs is a war.
I don't have time for political games, Ishiba. China is already making its move. You can't wait for public approval while they build their empire. Japan has to step up now.
I'll move as quickly as possible, but I need more time to ensure Japan is ready for what's next. This won't be a decision made on a whim.
If our fleet is destroyed, I'll make sure you regret it, as you already did once. You know what I mean, Ishiba. I have nukes ready for China, but I can test them on you if you force me.
Threatening me won't do you any good, Mr. Trump. Don't forget, I am the only one you have right now.
In the meantime, as the war expands further, China finds the time and space to disembark thousands of troops on the western coast of Taiwan. Battles erupt across the island. The immediate consequences are devastating. First and foremost, the humanitarian crisis unfolds as civilians bear the brunt of the conflict. Thousands of lives are lost in the initial battles, and millions are forced to flee their homes, creating a refugee crisis of unprecedented scale. Cities like Taipei and Kaohsiung are struck by intense airstrikes and ground battles, with civilian infrastructure, hospitals, schools, and roads obliterated in the process. The Taiwanese government, overwhelmed by the scale of the destruction, struggles to provide refuge, leaving countless people without shelter or basic necessities. Humanitarian organizations rush to provide aid, but the chaos and military presence make it nearly impossible to get help to those in need. The economic consequences are also catastrophic, not just for Taiwan, but for the entire world. More than a fifth of global maritime trade relies on the Taiwan Strait. Even more critical, 88% of the world's largest ships, by tonnage, pass through it, making it essential for the flow of goods, including electronics, oil, and consumer products. With the invasion underway, commercial vessels are either rerouted or blocked entirely, causing massive delays and halting the movement of goods. Shipping costs skyrocket as companies scramble to find alternative routes, but the vast distances and risks of conflict make these reroutes slow and expensive. Global supply chains, already fragile, begin to break down, leading to inflation, shortages, and a steep rise in the cost of goods worldwide. All this worsens with the halt of Taiwan's semiconductor industry. Taiwan produces around 90% of the world's most advanced microchips, and any interruption in production sends shockwaves through the global economy. Virtually every industry, from the automotive to electronics, relies on these semiconductors. As factories close and chip production grinds to a halt, the global tech sector is hit hard. Major companies face delays in product releases, and car manufacturers struggle with critical shortages of chips needed for vehicles. Analysts predict that this semiconductor shortage could cost the world's economy trillions of dollars over the next few years. Everyday luxuries taken for granted, like smartphones, cars, and electronics, are suddenly in jeopardy. Amid the rubble and flickering embers, whispers pass from one weary survivor to another, wondering how this war will truly end, and what lasting shadows it will cast across generations to come. Given their close proximity and China's extensive preparations, it seems inevitable that the earliest phases of the offensive will unfold swiftly. Yet this opening act raises far deeper questions about how the conflict might finally end, and the lasting shadows it will cast. The Chinese military will successfully land in Taiwan, at that stage controlling the Allied intervention and securing a foothold on the island. While Taiwan will fight back fiercely, the scale of the conflict and China's overwhelming forces will render these attacks ineffective in halting the invasion. Within months, and at the cost of hundreds of thousands of lives on both sides, China will capture Taipei and effectively seize Taiwan, unifying the nation after nearly a century of division. But the victory will come at an immense cost. The world will enter a prolonged period of tension, with sanctions, accusations, new alliances, and rivalries forming rapidly. It will be like Ukraine, only 1,000 times worse. US-led fleets will attempt to break the blockade, resulting in fierce naval battles as China fortifies its hold on Taiwan. Simultaneously, Taiwanese resistance will grow. Taiwan's mountainous terrain will prove ideal for guerrilla warfare, and the island will become a battlefield, with the US covertly supporting insurgents by supplying arms, technology, and training. Beijing will gradually tighten its grip on the population, economy, and politics of Taiwan, but the resistance will never stop. As tensions escalate and diplomatic efforts falter, the conflict will inevitably spiral into total war. If China struggles to control the US-led intervention, it will likely be forced to call its allies, primarily Russia, to join the fight. This will lead to a full-scale global conflict, with nuclear weapons quickly becoming a horrifying option. East Asia will be decimated. North Korea could align with China, reigniting the Korean War. The global economy will collapse under the weight of the conflict, and nations will be forced to choose sides. The world order will crumble, leaving a fractured, devastated planet. The war's duration will remain uncertain, but its aftermath will forever reshape the international landscape, with nuclear devastation looming large. If you liked this video, stay tuned for the next one. What if Trump deployed troops to seize the Panama Canal?